You are listening to the All County All Stars podcast, a show featuring franchise success stories in property management. Thinking about starting your own business and considering property management? Hear how our franchisees have partnered with All County to overcome obstacles and open flourishing franchises across the United States. Welcome to the All County All Stars podcast. This is your host, Tanya, and today I'm very excited to bring you a franchisee out of Pennsylvania, Tom McGrew. And we've been interviewing a lot of, as Tom calls it, veterans of our franchise family. And Tom is actually one of our newer franchisees. He opened his business, All County Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, in 2021. And Tom's got a very interesting background. He was in engineering. He did his master's program in engineering. He actually has an MBA as well, which we'll dig into. But Tom, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Tanya, great. Thanks for inviting me. Really excited to be here and talk to you about just my experience over the past little bit over a year now.
Yeah. Thanks for making the time. So talk to us a little bit about what you were doing prior to All County. It sounds like you had studied to be in engineering, and property management is a bit of a shift. Talk to us about how that happened.
Yeah, no, sure. I think it was just a slow progression over time. I really started, I had a background in engineering in my undergrad. In civil engineering. I was dead set I was going to get into transportation engineering, doing bridges and tunnels and
cool
roads and highways and all that kind of stuff. And then sort of throughout my internships, found that engineering was really boring. I've done the Myers-Briggs and everything, and I'm like all the way out on the extrovert scale. So sitting behind a computer, doing AutoCAD was just really not for me. And so then, kind of just through some exploring of different options, wound up working for a pharmaceutical company doing analytics. So it brought in a lot of the critical thinking and number, discipline around the engineering curriculum that I had studied, and kind of really applied it to just numbers and trying to derive insights out of data. Then I just found a passion in digital marketing, wound up working with big brands such as Dr. Scholl's, Coppertone, Claritin, brands that, we're all probably familiar with, and ones that, we're not. Started deriving a lot of marketing insight out of data that was coming from our digital marketing. Then, as you mentioned, decided that I think the business track is a bit for me. Wound up going to Indiana University to study my MBA and get my master's in marketing as well. So I just kind of built on that. And then to link it to the property management, how did I go from analytics to property management is when I had graduated college, I bought a foreclosure. I started fixing it up on my own, so I really learned a lot about building systems. I also had the civil engineering degree, so that kind of gave me a little bit of knowledge there. Fixed it up, and then I started renting it out. And I met my wife. We got married. We moved to a single family home. This was just a little townhome, and rented that out and really started getting more into rental properties. And that was my original intent, was to buy more rental properties and be a rental property investor. And really, when I was looking in the Lehigh Valley, where our territory is, all the property managers I did not think that they were going to do as good of a job as I had done with my own property. They had horrible reviews for the most part. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be other owners who feel the same way as I did. And then coming from corporate cloth, speed to value was important to me. And so a franchise was appealing because there's process, there's websites, there's, systems set up, there's a whole network of experienced people you can lean on. Because despite my experience, I don't know everything, especially, as it comes to managing other people's property. And that's what attracted me to the franchise. And I mean, we signed on with the franchise, I think it was in May of 21. We were all up and operational October 1st of 2021, and we had our first management agreement later that month. So,
oh wow!
I don't think I could have done it without this infrastructure of the franchise, the training and everything. I wouldn't have done it that quickly. I probably would have been able to get to the same point I'm at now, but I'm accelerating my speed through the franchise.
And tell us a little bit about, because it sounds like, it's really fun to interview our franchisees because they have such varied backgrounds, right? And it sounds
Yeah.
like you've got a lot of different things that sort of helped you along the path to choosing All County and property management. And once you were looking at franchises, did you know already that it was property management for you? Or did you decide maybe it's a different franchise? It sounds like it really was just property management that you were considering, not
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, it was. No, it was. I didn't even really look at other franchises. It was property. I just looked at all of the property management franchises. And I remember when I was meeting with the All County team, one of the comments was, we get a lot of people who look at different franchises. You're one of the only people I know that, has only looked at property management. I was like, yeah, because it was just, it leads to a lot of things. It leads to, different deals. And you can build on a real estate career. I've had my real estate license for a bunch of years, just doing my own stuff and maybe listing something for at some point. But I'm averaging like a deal a month, and I'm not actively searching out real estate sales. But you get LinkedIn, you get off-market deals and things like that, and so it's cool. I think when you know all that stuff, it's not just managing properties. That's obviously the core, but there's all these other things that you can get involved with that are ancillary to the core management that I find really exhilarating. So
I agree. I think you and I have similar stories in that both of us were real estate investors
Yep.
first, and then decided, wow, property management, there can be a lot better options for what's available out there in terms of services. So
100%.
it sounds like, you said property management was for you. You looked at all the franchises and you came to All County. What was it about it that stood out, and what didn't work in some of the other franchises that you considered?
Yeah, sure. So there was a few things in a lot of things at the same time. I think that the core of our decision was around the culture. Like there's tons of property management companies. There's a bunch of property management franchisees across all the major franchises in property management. So the one thing that was really a tipping point was the culture. Everybody calls it the All County family, and that was like something that kind of really resonated with us. I think that the group of franchisees, the leadership, it really is like a family, and that's for good and for bad reasons and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, that was the best fit. That was it. It didn't feel like we were just a number. It didn't feel like, oh, your office 1, 2, 3, and
right.
They're tracking your revenue metrics and blah blah blah. Like, it was very personalized. Like, how can we help you? If you're ever stuck, give us a call, and someone in the office can help you. And it was things like that, and it made that culture so different that's what tipped it. And the other stuff is really kind of minor in comparison to really just the culture, because if you're going to go down the path of signing a franchise agreement, you got to make sure it's the right one, because it's a 10-year agreement that you're really looking at, and I think you need to be very disciplined in it, and that's sort of what we found. We met the team and just sealed it for us.
And it is funny because we do say the All County family, and like you said, the franchise agreement is a 10-year agreement. So this is a business family that you get to choose. We don't always get to choose our family. So, and it's a long-term relationship. So I think that point is very important. You have to like the people you're working with. You have to feel like they're, in it for you and want to support you and want to help you with your business. And like you said, you're not just a number at the end of the day, right? You're not location number 359 or whatever it is. Did you find that there was a big difference in terms of the offerings of like each of the franchises in terms of what they offered in terms of structure?
What do you mean by in terms of structure?
So, for example, one of the reasons that I chose All County, right? Because I looked at the many franchises too, and there were some that had all these bells and whistles. They're like, we have a person for this, and we have an office for this, and we have a program for this, and all these other programs for all these other things. And for me, it was almost too much structure. I know that sounds a little funny because, first of all, they had so many different things that they wanted to, like, well, if you can have this category and that category and this category. And I was like, well, that seems like it's not very focused, first of all. And you can't do all things and be all things to all people, right? And I'm a big believer of, if you're going to do property management and you're going to do residential property management, which is by far the vast majority of property management out there, like, get somebody who is doing that and focus, right? Not like, oh, I'm going to go run off and do, I don't know, short-term rentals, which is a totally different business model. And trying to set up all these different business models at, when you're first starting is, I think, and not for all people, but for me, it was just, I wanted it to be focused because I'm a big believer of, if you focus on the niche and you help a very specific clientele and you get really awesome at what you're doing and the service is amazing, business will come to you, right? But if you're spread out really thin all over a bunch of different things, like, yeah, we do that. Yeah, we do that. It's like, well, what do you do really,
Yeah.
So that was my particular experience. But I was wondering if among the offerings, there was anything that really stood out to you as being different.
Yeah, no, I think, and without, I guess, going into a whole conversation with a bunch of like nitty gritty little details, there's a few things. I think one, I come from, when I was in the analytics space, it's really, I was aligned with IT. I've always been an IT person, building computers when I was in elementary school from scratch, when that was like, a rare skill, right? It's kind of nothing now. But I've always been a technologist, always an early adopter of technology. So the one thing that was different for me with All County is the technology suite. Like, when I looked at what is the best of the best, All County had like all of them. So from, property management software to like leasing software, all these different things, and the integrations and whatnot was carefully thought out in a way that I was like, okay, this is a differentiator. The second thing is, and it goes to your structure, and it's funny because being an engineer, very structured, being, cut from corporate America cloth, very structured, especially a large German company, even more structure. Structure's something that's sort of attractive to me. But I think what did it is, it's similar to what you were saying, is like, there's almost like so much structure that there's not really the bandwidth to be an entrepreneur. And I think that's the thing that's really important, is when where All County gives a lot of, space to franchisees, is that, you aren't stuck into some of these mandatory programs that I would question the value.
Yeah, or don't work in your
Right,
area.
exactly.
Right?
And in my background in digital marketing, some of those things were not attractive to me because I could, you can audit people's sites and things like that. And you can see what they work. At least that was my job for, 10, 15 years of, it was doing those types of things and determining effectiveness. And I felt that it was too structured. It didn't give you the bandwidth to be an entrepreneur and decide how to market yourself. And like you said, to be all things to all people. I think All County gives you that bandwidth as well, if that's what you choose, and you can be structured. The software supports all those things, but it doesn't come with, if you're expanding to different areas such as commercial or short-term rentals or HOAs, which is something that we do. You don't have to buy a whole separate software package, manage two systems. So I thought, the technology that All County subscribe to, the pricing that you get on that is better than you can get in, if you just started on your own. Exactly.
Correct.
And I've even been to other like property management groups, and one of our software reps was there, and they're like, "This is the best deal." I was like, "Really? Is it better than?" I'm part of All County, and they're like, "Yeah, no, hey, you guys have the best pricing, so we can't match or beat that. You're already good. This won't be better." So it's really comforting to know that, because you have a whole set of offices, and All County leverages the buying power of that to save franchisees money, and then gives them the bandwidth to be an entrepreneur without so much structure that you're kind of suffocating in it. And I think allows, like you had mentioned, the marketing, not everything works in all areas. It allows you to figure out what works in your area and create a marketing plan that is effective there, because we have a whole country. Things are so different, depending on where you are. So I think that's how I would sum it up.
So talk to us a little bit about, so you signed the franchise agreement in May of 2021. You opened your doors October 1st, 2021. What was that like starting up with literally zero properties? Did you have office space at the time? Tell us a little bit about how that journey went.
We had a closet with a desk. That's what we started with.
Hey, whatever
Yeah.
works. Whatever
Yeah,
works.
and I mean, here's the other thing too, is we were actually getting leads from the home office. So that's,
Oh.
yeah, the home office was, you fed us a couple of leads. Now, some of them were like, too far out of our area, but they weren't that far.
Hmm.
You know, without getting into a whole bunch of regulatory ordinance stuff, we couldn't service something that's out a certain distance.
Sure.
But still, they were very solid leads that the home office gets and passes on to franchisees. I think that's another benefit of a franchise. But, what we were working on is, like, I was just on Bigger Pockets, and I had alerts set up for my area with the cities that, we manage in, and just being very active, providing, free advice. I was listening to podcasts of, how to attract people, how to be good at what you do. And in that, our first lead came from, our first management agreement signed came from Bigger Pockets, because we
Interesting.
were just, I think sometimes you do all this setup, you get your website, you get your bio, and you set up the software and get everything integrated, and then you get that office space, and you're kind of like on your day one, and I have to imagine it wasn't for us, but what I foresaw coming is that you'd be sitting at that desk being like, okay, now what? What do I do now?
Right.
And so what we did in between that time, because the state of Pennsylvania they were backed up with COVID and everything on real estate inspections. We were trying to lay some of that groundwork that within what we could do from a license perspective of just, making contacts with people. I mean, I was still a licensed agent. And then once we were like green lighted, we kind of turned the other stuff on and started working towards closing some of those leads. And the biggest thing I did is I went back out to tenants I had in the past, vendors I had worked with, like on my own properties, said, hey, can you fill out a Google review for me? Like, I'm scaling up, I'm making this like an actual, commercial endeavor versus just kind of self-managing my own units. And so, if there's people that you've worked with in the space, like, get those Google reviews, because in most areas, a lot of property management companies aren't rated that well. If you can,
No, they really
yeah, if
aren't.
you can start building that, you know, ratings and reviews, because the internet's a blessing and a curse. Google reviews are an open invitation to anybody, anywhere, to say anything about you, true or untrue, and it's
Right.
there. So if you
Forever
can,
sometimes.
yeah. So if you can get as many people who, because some people are mistaken. They, we'll get calls sometimes like, "Are you ABC Property Management?" No, we're not. Okay, because we have a leak and you guys haven't been responding. I was like, it's not us. It's not us. I'm sorry. I was like, I trust you. If you called with a leak, we would have been on top of
We
it
would have,
ASAP.
yeah.
So if you can get people that you've worked with that in the space, vendors, tenants, if you had your own rental properties, get those Google reviews. If not, if you're starting really from scratch, you've never been a real estate investor, you've never been, really in that space, if you do know somebody who you've had work done on your own house, it's a good plumber that you worked with, you paid him quick, say, hey, one, I'd like to add you to my vendor list for my company. That's the one thing you should really start doing too. As you were saying, between like, it was like end of May, I think, through that October, build your bench of vendors. Just call some vendors, because all of a sudden you're going to have management agreements. You're going to have problems at properties. It just happens. You need to know who you're going to use.
Rely
And
on.
I
Yeah.
think if you have people that you've maybe worked with on your own, like on your own house or own rental properties, if you have any, build that bench, get their insurance, get them set up in your system. That way you've got this bench that you can pull from when you need to. And then, like I said, to start on the marketing piece, if it's somebody that, you've worked with and you had a good relationship with, ask them for a Google review. If you do that, I mean, that's our number one referral source right now. It's
Wow,
not
nice.
anything paid. It's all because we're good at what we do. We've got good reviews, and our competition is not rated as highly, and some of them are very poor.
And that's one fun thing too about for those of you that are listening, because you're considering a property management franchise. Sometimes the bar is really low, and so all you have to do is be yourself and awesome, and business will come to you. It takes time, right? It's not overnight, but like when you have a winning system and you work the system and you work it every day, and you do the right things, like honestly, I mean, for example, I'm in the Washington D.C. area. There's like a bazillion and one property management companies here. People ask me, aren't you worried about the competition? There's so many. I'm like, have you seen how many millions of houses there are here? I mean, literally, you can count the number of property management companies on probably, two hands that you have actually heard of, for one. And two, like you said, the Google review, portion of it, if you go and look, they don't all get really good reviews. And, even the ones that do get good reviews, if you know their system and, because there's a very large company out there that we compete against. But for example, they nickel and dime owners for literally everything, and which is one of the reasons I did not pick that franchise. And we don't. And owners see the difference. And, people are attracted to things that are of value, and, they get great service too. So it's just a matter of time. I think the bar, though, is very low in lots of places, and there's a big opportunity for a lot of you.
Well, I think expanding on that too is that, the statistics show that, 70% of residential properties are self-managed. So there's a huge pie out there, and there's plenty to eat.
For everyone.
For
That's
literally everyone. So there's, competition is not really competition. I think
Agreed.
there's just, like we do get people who are like, I'm so tired of my property management company. They're horrible, and I'd like to switch. You have good reviews, so talk to me. But that's a smaller part of self-managers, the, quote, accidental landlord, somebody who's inherited a unit and they don't know what to do. So all of those things, you are a bulk part of the leads that we get, and people who call are people who've maybe had a property manager in the past, or this is their first time, and they've not had any other experience with any other property manager previously. So flip that conversation to, I think it's like Australia. It's like the reverse. Only 30% are like self-managed, and like 70%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 70% is like,
that's wild.
Yeah, it's like a cultural thing there where you get a property management company. But in the US, only 30% of rental properties are managed professionally. So there's huge opportunity. You don't need to worry about, quote, competition, because I'd argue if you're good and you got good fundamentals, like you said, the bar is low. There is one property management company in our area, I think, that has like 1.9 stars with like over 50 reviews. So yeah, that's not just like a couple of people complaining, right? You legitimately,
there's a systemic problem there. Yeah.
I mean, you have to try to be that bad almost.
Ooh,
so
ouch.
it's if you look at your area, I guarantee you will find that if you can get the fundamentals down, deliver good quality service, at a fair price, you will, like, if you build it, they will come. It is definitely a field of dreams.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So how long did it take from that? So you started in October 2021, you got your first management agreement. Yay! And then what's the growth path like? Because it sounds from the franchisees that we talked to, it's very slow at first, and then it all of a sudden just kind of exponentially goes, up. So talk to us a little bit about how long that took, what, actions you took, and what advice you'd have for somebody just starting out.
Yeah, so we signed the first one in October. Like you said, woohoo, we've got one door.
Yay! And hey, first month is great, because if you're first starting, you're like, oh,
yeah. And by December, I think the last week in December, we signed on 12 doors in a week.
Wow.
In a week.
That's crazy. And what led to that?
It was part of it was just getting the reviews out. And the second thing is what being a marketer at heart, the one things that I found was property management is commoditized. Anybody can do it. You just need a license and, organizational structure, legal framework, blah, blah, blah. But anybody can do it. The, portion of people who do it well is small. To our last couple of points we touched on.
Yep.
So what I found is that instead of talking about, your price point and how, you do inspections at this point or that, or, trying to differentiate against something that's commoditized, it goes back to, there's like a motivational speaker, Simon Sinek, right? He goes, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So, I just lead with that of, hey, I've been a rental property investor myself. I understand what it's like to be in your shoes because I am. I also have my own rental property still in my area. And it was when you just say, this is what I do. This is, I don't nickel and dime people. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in a bunch of extra fees. I just think it's wrong. What we do is have high quality service. We've got, maintenance people that we work with. They're trusted. They've worked on my properties, my house in some cases. Those are the people that are there and, that we're backed up behind. And you just have to be your authentic self.
Yeah.
And, some people ask, well, how many doors do you manage? Well, at that point, one.
What?
Yeah, it's one. But, I've been doing this for some time. And even if you're just starting, you've never had a rental property, you don't own any, you've never been a property manager before. I mean, it goes back to the advice we were all given as kids, right? Just be yourself. And I think it's so simple, but we're so bad at actually being ourselves. And I think when you lead with that forward, and we did some paid marketing and other things to get some leads, like allpropertymanagement.com, and we tried Thumbtack and these other different things, and we got some good leads from that. We closed some doors from that. But ultimately, if you start talking about price and little differences, how I don't, somebody in our area charges an invoice fee anytime a maintenance contractor goes out. It's like $25. Yeah,
that
just
makes
to
me
post an
crazy as an
invoice.
investor.
Yeah, it's
No.
ridiculous. But if you start getting down those types of rabbit holes, you're not going to, you are going to be like every other property manager. If you say, hey, I'm Tom or I'm Tanya, this is what I do, this is why I do it, this is why I'm so passionate about this area, people will identify with that. And I tell any owner that calls, I'm like, look, you got to make sure that I'm a fit for you just as much as I got to make sure you're a fit for me. Ultimately, yeah, you could go to other property managers. There's some good ones and you'll be happy. But who are you actually going to, if something hits the fan, right? Who are you going to call and who do you think is going to be the best for that? And ultimately, it's going to be that relationship, because business is built on trust, especially property management. The only thing I have is my reputation. So that's very important to me. Sort of, do you want to do business together is where it goes. And you'll be surprised at how many people go, wow, you're authentic, you're direct, you're this, you're that. I'm buying Tom. I'm not buying
That's correct.
All County. I'm not buying property management. I'm buying Tom or whoever the franchise is. I'm buying his team. I'm investing in them as people and not a company. And I think if you can create a person instead of a company and a logo, not that that's not important, but ultimately people are trusting you. They're investing in you and your company and what you bring, and that's what's most important. To your second point of sort of our trajectory, I mean, we had over 20 doors under management in under 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
With under 6 months, we were about 50.
Nice.
And then all of a sudden the summer just exploded. We were at almost 100 by the 1 year mark. I think we were
Nice.
at like 98 or something like that, or it was just over 100.
You made it. You made
Yeah,
it. The 100 property in the year kind of,
exactly.
benchmark is
Yep.
what we're going for.
And now since then we've signed almost another 100 doors. I mean, we've eclipsed 200
Whoa!
and it's not even a year and a half.
That is
Yeah,
crazy.
I think we're at 206 right now. 206
And
in a year in what, 4 months, 3 months?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And for those people listening, considering, a franchise and property management in particular, I have to say I went to the annual conference last September, which is actually where I met Tom.
Yeah,
And I was impressed at the amount of people who had literally started in the last year or two. And remember, we're talking COVID times here when there was like eviction moratoriums. I mean, there was all kinds of crazy things going on in the rental market. And I was so impressed that people who had started with All County had basically gone from zero to like 100, 150, 200 properties. I mean, we've got people that have gone to like 300 properties. It is unbelievable. And the great thing about being in a network and a family of franchisees is that success leaves clues, right? And they're invisible and actually offered to you to help build a business. So you are not alone. I mean, to get to 300 properties on your own is not impossible,
no,
but like you said, Tom, at the very beginning of the call, it takes a lot longer than if you're running with a crowd that like knows what they're doing. They've got the tools. We can share best practices and ideas. I mean, congratulations on your success. That's amazing.
thank you. I it's been a wild ride. I think the other thing too, for all the people listening to this, and what went through my head and my wife's head when we were considering, moving forward with All County is, there's a cost to it, right? And there's fees and other things, and you're spending a decent amount of money up front, and in the first couple months, and you don't have a lot of revenue. It
Yeah,
is scary, and it's one of
it
the
is
things
scary. It is.
I as an analytics person, I threw all this stuff in a spreadsheet. I started doing projections and all these other kinds of things, and I was like, oh my gosh, what happens if we fail? And that was just like a bug in the back of my head. And I had like Devin, my wife, who also partner, she leads our operations, and I, had multiple conversations over, a couple of months and that was like the biggest thing. It's like, what happens? This is a very expensive. This is, there's a lot of time and effort here and all these other kinds of things. Um, I'm really concerned. And, then the flip side of it was like, yeah, okay, what if you fail? You need to consider that. But what if you're successful past what your wildest dreams could be, which is what has happened to us? I'm not just saying that because I'm a franchisee and this is a podcast. I truly, believe in that. And I think that, you have a lot of resources within the franchise to help you.
Yeah.
You've got an infrastructure of, people who have been doing this for years and years and years that you can call them up, ask them questions. What would you do? Those types of things. And I think, there's a certain amount of, you need to just trust the process. And I sat there listening to people like myself, franchisees like myself, like 200 doors in less than a year and a half. Yeah, okay. And
Yeah. It's like,
exactly. And
I don't know. It seems like a big sales pitch, but it's actually real.
yeah,
It is real. We have met these people. They are doing well. Like
yeah,
it's a thing. It's not just for marketing. It's not just like you said for the podcast. Like there are actual people doing exactly what the franchise not promises per se, because obviously
yeah,
it
there's no
depends on how
problem.
hard you work
Right.
and what you do. But I mean, our benchmark is like at least 100 properties by year one, and you've blown past that. So I mean, wow, yeah.
Right. And when I get on the calls where, potential franchisees to want to talk to people who are in the system, and, that's always the question they have is, how did you get started? And like,
How long does it take? Yeah.
there's really no secret sauce to it. Like if you do the work and, when I first started, I was still in a W-2 job. So I was
Hmm.
doing this on the side, and, um, you're still able to build a successful business doing it. I don't want to say it's easy because it's not. It doesn't mean you just, sit at your desk and you kind of
Just
we
wait for the business to
yeah,
come. No, no.
exactly. You
If only it was that
you
easy,
have to
right?
definitely do some hustle. There's gonna be nights like, some of the days when, I've been up until 10 o'clock at night just finishing up things and doing financials and printing checks. And you will have those nights. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. But, if you're disciplined, if you trust the process, if you put good process and people in place, the people is an important component, you be your authentic self, you will find that, business will come to you. And then once you start delivering great service to those people, get them to fill out Google reviews, and then that's the snowball. You start building the snowball when you've got a few units, deliver great customer service at, I would say, almost all costs, right? And if you do that and you get those reviews, it's just going to start building, and more people are going to see what you're doing and why, and they're going to sign on with you. They're going to find you, and you're going to find other good owners. And the one last thing I would caution is I've fired owners. Like, I could be at way more doors. I could be at much higher door count, but I've fired owners or I've just declined because, the people who are going to be super price conscious, go see the properties. That's another piece of advice. You always want to see them, especially on portfolios, see a few and make sure it's a good fit for you. Because otherwise, if you bring on bad owners and, search for revenue, even if it's really attractive, you could find yourself being one of those property management companies with a 1.9 Google review.
Yeah,
And
and just burned out and just exhausted, and
exactly,
yeah.
because those bad properties are going to increase maintenance requests. You're not going to get the same tenants that you would for nicer properties that are well maintained, no deferred maintenance.
And that owners care about. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're like, you know what? I don't want this cost. But it's the right thing for the property to protect my investment. And many of these people, I mean, there's significant amounts of money that they're investing here, and I don't understand why more owners don't choose good property management, even if it's a higher cost. Like, you wouldn't just allow anybody to take control of your 401k and just making a bunch of investments. But owners of investment properties sometimes do that, and it's crazy. So if you're really good, the good owners will find you, and you'll be better. And fire the ones, even if it costs you revenue, because the time you spend on those properties is time you won't be working towards finding great owners with great property.
Great
That
properties,
give you a great
100%.
reputation.
That's a fantastic tip for newbies. So what's next for you, Tom? I mean, what's your plan? Just keep on growing. What's the future look like for All County Lehigh Valley?
We're a little bit at this pivot point of growing and scaling. So we've grown. We've brought somebody on. She's our maintenance coordinator. She's fantastic. There's 3 of us. So we're at this point with the door count that we have where you need to grow more to bring some people on, but you're in some of these growing pains of that growth that you already have. So we're at this pivot of like, when you first start out, you're like the solopreneur, right? It's just you. It's one person. You do everything exactly. And then you get a few doors and you're like, I need somebody else. And then you start getting, I mean, we've signed on, like I said, like a pretty much 100 doors in less than 6 months.
That is insane. That is crazy.
Yeah,
that is a lot of work.
Since last October 22 to now, over 100 doors we've signed.
Wow.
And so I'd like to keep that pace. Now that's a little bit unsustainable, but and it's hard bringing on large chunks of doors like that. It takes some time. But in those few months, what we have started to realize is like we are in sort of this pivot point of like you need to figure out how to scale yourself and how to scale your operation past just like 1 or 2 people. You need to double down on making good process. You need to double down on you can't be the only person, doing everything, because if you do, you will not
Well,
be
you can't grow.
successful.
Yeah,
You
you
can't
you
grow.
can't grow. You can't do everything. I mean, you can't manage 400 properties on your own. It's
No,
not possible.
no.
And that's the model, right? I mean, there's growing pains at each stage of the business, and I think it's for those of you that want to start and be a solopreneur, as Tom mentions. You can do it all yourself, learn all of the things so that you can teach others when you bring them on, right? And there is a model at All Accounting for how you can do your staffing, how you can set it up. But, again, we have a lot of bandwidth and freedom to determine what that model looks like,
Right.
who we hire, when we hire. That it is not so rigid that they're saying, well, as soon as you get 100 doors, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't do that, there's going to be some kind of penalty, which, by the way, for those of you investigating a lot of franchises, there are things that if the corporate office doesn't do, there are penalties sometimes. So make sure you read the fine print in those franchise agreements. We don't have it here, but, and that was one thing I liked too, which was there is space for you to conduct business in the manner that you see fit, to hire in the way that you see fit, to structure the operation. They'll give you some tools and they'll say, hey, this is how we do it at our home office. This is how other franchisees have tackled this particular problem. But in your case, I mean, you are the business owner. This is why, you are the business owner. You get to make the decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, there's kind of two prevailing structures that people use in kind of structuring their business once they start getting past a growth phase into more of a scale phase. You need a scale so then you can keep growing. At first, it's just doors.
Yeah, just grab all the doors, grab all the doors.
And you're just, I need to focus on growth. I need to focus on marketing. I need to focus on signing doors on, getting revenue, building that business and that portfolio up. And then once you're in scale, you need to make sure you have the process and things in place. And we do get a lot of materials that can help with process. There's online trainings and different things to help you onboard team members. And then, like you said, the freedom though is, like I said, there's two schools of thoughts on how you scale your business. One kind of being, do you have people be role based, or do you have a sort of portfolio basis? So you bring on people, they manage a certain portfolio, and they kind of do everything with that portfolio. They talk to the owners, they maintain the relationships, they work with, a pool of vendors that everybody with different portfolios uses, but they're really the primary contacts there. Or on a role based, which is where we've gone, I do client relationships, business development. Devin does operations, so making sure leases are out and like all of this sort of behind the scenes stuff that you don't always see, but if it doesn't work, you will absolutely see it.
With no signed leases, you got no
Exactly.
properties. So
and onboarding tenants, onboarding owners, getting all like direct deposit information, insurance, all of that kind of stuff. Like, leasing is another component. She also handles a lot of the leasing piece, so she's leasing and operations. And then we have hired a maintenance coordinator, and her sole role is really making sure all the maintenance is done. Any maintenance requests we get, they're completed in a timely manner at a reasonable price, and that it's just done. And we have software and stuff that allows tenants and to be able to give us feedback on their experience with maintenance and stuff like that. So it's always good because then you can get another just checkpoint on your vendors and stuff, make sure they're doing the job that they tell you they're going to do. But yeah, that's sort of the structure that we've gone, and that's where we're going to scale. I think we're going to bring on our next role is to bring on some maintenance, but like more of a boots on the ground. Like, let's say there's a smoke detector and a really tall ceiling. We've got some of these old buildings with, you can't reach and you need a decent ladder to get to them. But like things like that, I'm not going to go hand out to a a handyman. It would be the charges would be exorbitant to do something that's so simple, and handle some like basic tasks or like tenant turnovers. So the make ready process of do we need small little drywall repairs, touch up paint,
light bulbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Small silly things, but
all of that, but that contributes to a great tenant experience.
course.
So, punch list items. So that I think that's our next step. So we'll have 4, but we're not going to totally internalize maintenance. I think sometimes you get a, fox watching the hen house situation with that. That's what we've gotten a lot of owners come over where there's a company that has a very big maintenance operation and they're just getting
Charging for
absolutely
everything.
raked
Yeah.
over the coals. Well, they charge a super low management fee to get to.
But they get you on the
And then
maintenance.
all of a sudden they find all this maintenance, and every year you wind up, one owner, he's like, they just replaced this door last year. Now, I don't think my tenants are just ruining the doors every
Oh
single year.
gosh,
Because I paid for
no.
this. And he goes, I feel like I'm getting charged twice. I didn't even get any pictures. So
Yeah,
I
no.
kind of want to avoid that situation where people think that, we're doing the same thing. I mean, we never would, but, the basic stuff, if we can provide at a low cost to them, where bigger projects, we source out, I think it'll be a perfect balance, but that's what we're looking towards.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on all your amazing success, Tom. I think we're excited to see what you do next. It's always fun to compare notes at the annual conference and be like, hey, what's working and what's not, right? And so thanks so much for coming on the show this morning and sharing your experience with new franchisees. And best of luck for the next steps.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here, and we're gonna try and get to. There's another franchisee who did pretty well with about 300 doors by year 2. So if we can get there, that's or surpass, that would be great. But we'll see.
Love it. I love the friendly competition. I'm right there with you. I'm like, I'm gonna catch it too. This is the fun thing. Because it's like it's a friendly family competition. Because
exactly.
Obviously we're gonna have Simon Hart on the show, and he's our top producing franchise owner, and he's I don't even know how many doors he has. Probably over 1,000 at this point.
A lot.
It's
He's
crazy
because
because we're all on a central website, by the way, for those of you, so we can compare numbers, which is really fun for us competitive people. Because we're like, oh, it's possible. Let's see. Let's go for it. So I'm a year behind you, Tom, but I'm going to catch up.
Do it. We all win, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, I love the dashboard of kind of showing where everybody's at. It's it is definitely fosters some friendly competition.
It does, and it also gives you a good check on how you're doing, right, compared to a lot of other franchisees. Because I'm like, oh look, this month we're ahead of some other more established, companies. I'm like, wee. So anyway, but thanks again for taking the time, Tom, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your day, and best of luck to you as well as you grow. So we'll keep setting those goals and breaking them.
Sounds awesome. We'll see you at the conference too in September.
Yep. See you in September.
We hope you've enjoyed hearing this episode of the All County All Stars podcast. Thanks for giving us a 5-star review. For more information on how All County can help you start and grow an amazing business, go to allcountyfranchise.com or call us at 855-245-7368. You're only one phone call away from an opportunity that could change your life.